Welcome back to this special program, Entrepreneurial Government, Cybersecurity. I'm your host, Francis Rose. The federal government spends billions of dollars every year on software, but the way the government buys it, tracks it, and maintains it can leave something to be desired. Here, you'll learn techniques for better software supply chain management. Let's pick things up there with Wanda Jones-Heath, Chief Information Security Officer at the United States Air Force, and Tristen Yancey, Regional Vice President Federal at Flexera. Thanks both very much for joining me, ladies. Wanda, I'll start with you. First of all, congratulations on your recent promotion. Tell me what you're working on at the Air Force right now. What's in your portfolio?
So right now we have a lot going on with cybersecurity. With the recent release of all the national security policies, cyber policies, it's really given us an opportunity to focus more on cybersecurity and some of the things we want to do. Of course, at the top of the list is cyber hygiene. All the things that we need to do from a normal day-to-day basis is very important, and sometimes it gets left out. We're also focusing on IT modernization, similar to what Jones-Heath spoke about. We have to continue to bring in new tools, new network vulnerability scan documents and things like that, so that we can at least get in front of the adversary. It's a non-event sometimes, but when we have those events, we want to be ready.
The important thing I think people forget about when it comes to cybersecurity in the military is everybody's focused on the adversary, rightfully so, certainly very important. It's not necessarily just a potential adversary militarily that you're worried about, is it? You're worried about adversaries that are trying to gain all kinds of information, not just actionable military information. Am I reading that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. With our defense industrial base, it's very important that we include them in the discussions, because they are providing the capabilities that we need, development all the time, and so they have to also be vigilant and make sure they're protecting the data and any new capabilities that we're trying to bring into the inventory. So we have to have a very, very broad perspective when we talk about cybersecurity, from development to new tools to just maintaining our networks.
Tristen, an element of the cybersecurity strategy documents that have come out recently that Wanda just talked about is supply chain management, especially in software development. What do you see as kind of the state of the art right now? What should agencies, organizations in government, especially in the military side, be thinking about in that respect?
Well, I think it's pretty apparent that there's a lack of visibility and transparency in the supply chain. And so once you have your arms around your IT baseline, it's really important to understand country of origin, end of life, end of support, so that you can get that comprehensive view into your IT environment. On top of that, open source continues to be an issue. So you really need to get down and scan at the code and package level, get down to the component level, and make sure you have a really rudimentary understanding of your environment.
Do you see organizations that are still struggling with those, or is that just kind of the baseline, the foundation on which one can build a better understanding of what their supply chain posture is?
So they're getting better. We do see agencies that are still struggling to get their arms around their IT environment, but it really depends on level of maturity. And for those that are more mature, then they step it up to the next level and they can get to the more complex questions that they need to answer.
What have you and your colleagues done to try to get your arms around that issue, Wanda?
So for the Air Force, we are definitely taking a more interest in supply chain risk management. We recognize that we have to do that in order to do end-to-end vulnerability assessments. We recently stood up a working group that is Air Force-wide to get after this question of how do we have supply chain integrity from end to end. Big task, but we've started the conversations. We're working with the acquisition community, who is a big part of supply chain, and because they do our ordering and a lot of our tools acquisition. So we're doing it, just getting started, long way to go, but at least we're starting to have the conversation up front.
Tristen used a word that I think is especially applicable for your situation at the Air Force, and that's transparency. You want as much as you can possibly get. What can the vendor community do to give you the transparency that you'd like?
One of the things that we're asking the vendors to do is, first of all, know who their suppliers are. One thing that I'm seeing is they're going down to probably level 4, level 5, but their supply chain is huge. Some type of accountability, integrity in their entire process is something we're looking for them to make sure they do.
Tristen, one of the things that General Lee touched on, and Wanda's mentioned it as well, is every organization has tons of data, and they have it on it's coming from all different kinds of devices and so on. Tell me what you're seeing best practice-wise when it comes to corralling all of that information and understanding where it's coming from and the level of security of the devices from which it's coming.
Sure, you need to separate the relevant and irrelevant data. So getting rid of all of the DLLs, the language packs, the uninstallers, and really focus on the meat of the data. Once you have that core data, then you can concentrate on it and look at, what you need to do in terms of securing that data and securing the systems that are on that data and aligning all of it so you have that holistic view from, the system level down to the core data element.
Does everybody always agree on what's the relevant data and what's the irrelevant data, or is that kind of is there a debate among that sometimes?
For the most part, but that's where you have the dialogue up front to help define what that is so that you aren't arguing about the data and you can actually do something about it.
You were kind of smiling as I asked that question.
Absolutely. Everybody's data is critical, but what is the most critical assets as it relates to data? That's the part that we really have to get after. And, it's hard because you want to be relevant. You want your data to be part of the decision cycle.
I want to shift gears. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to shift gears in the time that we have left, because the number one topic that seems to be on a lot of people's minds about cybersecurity is the workforce. We haven't really touched on it in this program so far. What are you looking for? What are the kinds of people and the kinds of skills that you're looking for, not just to find from outside to come into the Air Force, Wanda, but to develop among the people that you already have, that you like, that you want to stay, and you want them to continue to be relevant too?
Right. So what we're doing in the Air Force is we're looking at it in 3 buckets. We want to recruit. We need those new talents to come in as we, go down the road of cloud migration, mobility, and things like that, more technical. And then we also want to retain some of our seasoned employees because they have value and they bring the experience level to the force. And then we want to retool those folks who are kind of caught in the middle, but they have opportunity to go into some new areas. And so when we put all those buckets together, then we have a strong, skilled, and experienced workforce.
Tristen, we have less than a minute left. What do you see as the shortfalls for agencies? Where should they maybe be thinking about talent in the coming years that maybe they're not right now?
So I think innovation would actually help with that. So in addition to just the people problem, you have the innovation issue. So if we think technology is changing quickly, cybersecurity is changing even more quickly than that. And so I think agencies really need to focus on people, resources, and the availability of time to dedicate to that and test for new ways to prevent cyber breaches. So really it's the innovation and maybe creating innovation labs.
We have 20 seconds left. What do those innovation labs look like when they're mature?
That's a really good question. So they're fully staffed, they have multiple proof of concepts going on, and they have cyber professionals that are testing against the cyber threat.
Tristen, Wanda, thanks both very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Today, a lot of the decision-making around cybersecurity starts and ends with data. How to keep it safe and maximize its benefits. That's next on Entrepreneurial Government, Cybersecurity. Stay with us.
Entrepreneurial Government is brought to you by Flexera. Download our market trends report, improve your software supply chain with next-generation asset management at govloop.com/software supply chain.